All right. Hello, everyone, and good morning. We are super excited to be with you this morning as we talk through leading like a human in times of uncertainty. We have Adam Weber, who will be your speaker for today, who's the Chief People Officer and co-founder of Amplify. And I will introduce him a little bit more here in a second, but just wanted to share a couple things as we go into this conversation today. So first, after this presentation or for the rest of the conference, please feel free to swing by the Amplify booth, come talk to our friends that are monitoring that, check out some resources. We also have a fun little game in there for you to maybe get a DoorDash gift card. So please come check that out. And also during today, please, Adam and I will be live answering questions in the chat. So throughout the presentation, please put everything, any questions, anything that comes to mind in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that as we go. And then finally, we have a little fun kind of meet the author session with Adam immediately following this. So we'll put a link to a Zoom in the chat when we conclude this, that you can come and actually meet with Adam live, ask him any of your questions, just get a chance to talk to him and have that face-to-face interaction. But now I just want to do a quick introduction so you know who Adam is and why he's so awesome and why you're listening to him today. But like I said, Adam is our Chief People Officer at Amplify. Amplify is a company that helps leaders measure, diagnose, and solve their engagement challenges. Previously, he was the co-founder of Bluebridge Digital, which was a mobile app platform, where he grew and sold that company in 2016. Adam is an expert and speaker on employee engagement, culture, team performance, and leadership development, and has spoken to a number of people at events around the country, including past and CEO events. Is consistently a top-rated presenter. He was just named to Business Insider's list of rising stars in HR, and he holds a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's degree in organizational communication from Ball State University. He is a former musician, retired pastor, aspiring comedian, and currently lives in Zionsville with his wife, 2 sons, his new puppy, and this new camper that he just bought, which is where he is. So Adam, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Nicole. It's good to be here with you. And everyone, thank you for taking the time. I am, yes, as Nicole mentioned, I am in my camper. This is in my yard, and it's turned into my de facto office. My commute is definitely shortened during this time, but it's been a nice place. So hopefully no children will interrupt this, but if they do, I think that people will probably understand, because it might be the same thing happening to you all as well. And for those of you who don't know, Nicole, oh, go ahead,
sorry.
Nicole.
See, this is what happens. I was just going to say, we are obviously, Adam working from camper, I am working from home. So please forgive any technology blimps or maybe cutouts in audio. I'm sure many of you are also dealing with the new workforce. And as Adam was about to do, I should introduce myself. I'm Nicole McLean. I'm a Director of Relationship Marketing at Amplify. I am actually speaking later this afternoon on how to leverage marketing during this time to set your businesses apart. But for now, just joining Adam to kind of tee up some conversations, some questions that we've curated from business leaders during this time, and allowing Adam the chance to just share some really tactical examples of things that you can do to help lead your workforces. So I'm excited to be here with you guys now, and hopefully maybe see a couple of you later this afternoon.
Great.
Adam,
that was a great intro for yourself. That was a great intro for yourself, which is what I was going to do. And I basically wanted to say, because you are speaking, you've produced so much good, helpful content for other companies in your own right during this whole time. And so just permission for for you to chime in if any of these comments, or, you've got your own thoughts that you've been sending, like producing as well. And so I just want, let's go back and forth. Feel free to chime in and add as well.
Absolutely. And for you guys in the chat too, if you hear us talking about, we're going to be talking about remote culture and how to foster that human connectivity. If you have ideas that you are doing or you've seen other companies, please put that in the chat. We would just want to kind of allow this to be an opportunity to share and learn from each other. And this is a really unprecedented time. And so I think a lot of folks are just trying to figure out what to do, and that's really what we're here for. But before we kick off, Adam has been doing this for our team meetings, a little exercise to just help us all get into the right headspace. And especially with this being the first session of the morning, I asked if he would maybe do that same exercise for all of you on the call. So Adam, if you want to go ahead and kick us off with that.
Sure. Thanks, Nicole. And the reason why I've been doing this is because I think we all need to acknowledge that this is an unprecedented time. And as a leader, making sure that you are staying centered and grounded, which we'll talk about more in just a bit, is really critical. And it's easy, even when you're working from home, it's just to go from task to task to task to task and not pause and make sure that you are centered. And so before we dive in, we're just going to do two things. We're going to just take 3 deep breaths and we're going to center ourselves. And then I'm going to read a poem that's been really inspiring to me through this season, and I'm hopeful that it'll be inspiring to you. And just so you know why I do poems, I believe they really do activate a different part of your brain. And we're coming here to learn new things, so let's activate different parts of our brain, get us in the right headspace, so that from this, 1 or 2 things you can, hopefully will serve you well in how you're leading as well. So before we do that, let's just, if you would, just close your eyes and make sure your feet are firm on the floor, back sitting up nice, straight and tall. We'll just take 3 deep breaths and make sure we just gain some presence in this space today. Okay, and I'm going to read the full poem because I love this poem. It's called Old Maps No Longer Work. And this is the first poem I read to the team a month ago when this all started. So, Old Maps No Longer Work by Joyce Rupp. I keep pulling it out, the old map of my inner path. I squint closely at it, trying to see some hidden road that maybe I've missed. But there's nothing there now except some well-traveled paths. They have seen my footsteps often, held my laughter, caught my tears. I keep going over the old map, but now the roads lead to nowhere, a meaningless wilderness where life is dull and futile. Toss away the old map, she says. You must be kidding, I reply. And she looks at me with Sarah eyes and repeats, toss it away. It's of no use where you're going. No map, no specific directions, no this way or take a left. How will I know where to go? How will I find my way? No map? But then the midlife soul whispers, there was a time before maps when pilgrims traveled by the stars. And it is time for the pilgrim in me to travel in the dark, to learn to read the stars that shine in my soul. I will walk deeper into the dark of my night. I will wait for the stars, trust their guidance, and let their light be enough for me. Old maps no longer work. And just for everyone who's watching, and the reason I wanted to read that is we often show up to talks hoping to find one, try to gain something from someone else. And in this moment, the one thing I just would encourage everyone is to make sure you're looking inward as well. All of us are facing this circumstance for the first time, and you might actually hold the right answer inside of yourself. Maybe you don't need to find it from me. And so how's that for my very first tip, is to say, if you give yourself space and permission and belief that there's no path to follow right now. We are all trying to be genuine, authentic leaders through this season, make the very best decisions with the situations that we have.
I would just like to point out that I do have a map directly behind me, which was not planned. Adam and I did not make this connection. But you know what? That math is not super helpful when figuring out new business models and what to do with your employees. So I think that was a very apropos poem. So thank you for sharing that with everyone. And to kind of kick us off, about a month ago, kind of when this all started, you wrote a blog post that I think kind of started it all for some of the content you've been creating recently. Mm-hmm. And it was really along this topic of leading in times of uncertainty and what does that look like as a leader. And so can you maybe just kind of kick off, it's crazy to think that it's already been a month, even almost a month and a half, but maybe just start with kind of what was the initial thought behind that blog post and maybe some of those key things that you talked about and what it means to lead like a human in times of uncertainty.
Yeah. Of course. And I think it's a really good transition actually from the poem in many ways. So I guess 5 weeks tomorrow. And when you were saying that, now it's starting to have enough weight behind the time. I actually got the chills when you said that. I was like, wow, it's really been a pretty significant amount of time. But it was, 4 or 5 weeks ago, that was the same day that that Tom Hanks got diagnosed and the NBA shut their season down. And that evening, I realized that work and leadership for me was never going to be the same, that I was about to enter into a season of facing a series of decisions that were more complicated than anything I've ever had to make before, from both me personally and our company and our leadership team. And so I stayed up that night and I wrote a blog for myself. And it wasn't really a blog. I journaled, is what it was, I guess. And just to really serve as a guide for myself on who am I going to be during this season? And how can I make sure that when I face difficult decisions, that I do them in a way that I'll look back on them in a way that I gave myself the very best chance to make the best decisions. And so I'll just go through kind of some of the basics of what those are, and the reason why I think this is so important, I'm going to get in toward the end of this to really practical stuff that we're doing. But the reason why this is critical is because this gets into that map that you're following for yourself. How do you give yourself the very best chance to find the answers inside of yourself? So that was kind of what I was doing. So the first was take care of yourself. So trust your morning routine. Journal, read something timelessly true, meditate, whatever that is for you. But and maybe for you, that's an area where you've known it's something you needed to address in your life and you just haven't. But as a leader, to start your day anchored in something that is outside of this pressing situation, I think is absolutely critical. I'd actually say that closing your day as well is really important as well. What we're trying to do is change the trajectory of our horizon. Like when we only make decisions in this vacuum of a crisis-based situation, we get stuck. And what we don't want to do is make decisions in fear or make decisions with a myopic focus. Every now and then we need to come up out of the water, make sure we're looking out on the horizon and making decisions with a longer view. And so one of the ways I think that you do that is by having a morning routine. So and I've been trying to stay really disciplined with that. For me, it's a combination of poetry because it's different and it puts my head into a different space, and it's journaling. It's allowing myself to be transparent with the emotions that I'm feeling. It's interesting doing this 5 weeks ago because I did do webinars right after this happened, and now it's like been time. There's been a lot of time that's passed, and there have been days that have been really good days and other days where it's just been really hard days. And so that's the first one. The second is to make sure you give yourself enough time to process. Are you setting aside thinking time where you're not just consuming, but you're thinking? And I think when you're in high stress situations, it can be really easy to consume inputs from your team, from webinars, from the news. You have all these different data inputs, but are you giving yourself space and distance to process as well? So for me, and I was just talking about this with my team today, 20 minutes every single day, no phone. I have a flip phone I take with me, so when I need a break, and I take 20 minutes at least every single day, and I go on a walk, and that is just a time to kind of process, and that's my minimum amount that I just kind of am holding myself to make sure that I have some time just to sit and be and think and process. The next one, and you know, this is hard because some of the decisions that we're all facing are really challenging, but is to be authentic, to be yourself. This is an opportunity for leaders to take down the walls that maybe they've held up, that maybe have blocked them from genuine relationships with their employees, that maybe block them from psychologically safe environments, which I'm guessing we'll get into a little later, and just share who you really are and how you're actually doing with your team and how you are processing this experience as well. By naming that and for yourself, I think you give permission for everyone else, and you help acknowledge for everyone else that this is a unique scenario. This is not business as usual right now. The next is be transparent and be willing to explain your decision-making process. No question already, there have been a series of decisions that we've had to make that have been really hard. And what I have always found, I've said this in my talk for years, that employees are very willing to follow along. They don't have to agree with all of your decisions. Like, we're going to have to make hard decisions through this process, period. And they may not agree with all of them. But when you take the inputs, you give yourself space and time to process. And then when you make that decision, make sure you that you are willing to explain. Peel back the curtain on the inputs that you took, how you thought through it, and why you made the decision you did. And I think when you do that, you'll be surprised with the empathy that your team will have, knowing that you are facing a pretty unprecedented time. The next is to lead with care. Remember that your team is just as uncertain as you are, that you have team members right now who are working with a 2-year-old hanging from their face, or in the middle of a Zoom, and a baby that's crying in the background, and or a family member who's ill, or job insecurity, or financial pressure because their spouse just lost a job. I think it is important that we don't detach ourselves, that in every decision we make, no matter what they may be, that we lead with care, that we try to take care of the people to the very best of our ability that we can. And then the last is, and then in my mind, this was really for me, this was like, so before I make that bold decision, what are all the things I'm going to do? And then the last is just, now it's time to be bold and decisive. I may not make the right decision this entire time. I've had to make a series of mini decisions, like a series of decisions this whole time. But what I do know is if I follow these other tips, and that then I feel confident that I will make the best decision with the information I have, and I can stand by those decisions. And so it's time to be bold and decisive. It's not, this isn't, all of this stuff I'm referring to is not to lead to someone like, oh my gosh, is he in the middle of this thing? Or no, it is, I want to make bold, decisive decisions from a healthy, grounded place, because when I make bold decisions, I have to stand by them. And I want to be certain that when I look back on them, that I did the very best I could to be in the best place possible before I made those decisions.
I think that's such an important point, Adam. One thing, just to go maybe a layer deeper, is that second to last point, lead with care, I think also transitions to the synonym empathy, which we've gotten a lot of questions about, and what does it mean to be an empathetic leader? I assume a lot of these kind of carry over to that, but could you maybe just address like how you would define an empathetic leader?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it goes into that lead with care, like you said. It's one is, are we listening? Like, are we taking time to truly consider the situations of other people? I think because we're all going through our own situations, it's sometimes difficult. It's more difficult to remember that the person on the other end that's maybe is frustrating you or isn't meeting expectations or whatever it may be, is also going through their own unique experience as well. And so pausing to truly understand, to ask questions, to be kind. This is a time to be kind. And to communicate, I think, are some of the critical things. What do you think, by the way?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with it. I think the listening is a really important part, especially with everything being so virtual. It's so easy to be on a Zoom call, but still have Slack up or your text or your email, and being on a one-on-one with your direct report, or being in a meeting and you get those pings or those distractions. I think it's really putting yourself in that focused space, and even communicating that back to whoever you're meeting with, like, hey, I have notes up. I'm going to be taking notes right now, but I've shut down all other things that could be distracting me. So Slack, text, notes, etc. So if you see me like not looking at you in the camera, it's because I'm taking notes right now, and I don't want you to think that I'm, answering an email. And I think just taking that small action to tell the employee that you're putting them at the center of your time is a really critical thing to do right now. And I know we're going to get into communication a little bit more later. We've lots of things about frequency of communication and how to do that. But we found through the Amplify survey that during this transition, it's really that middle manager or that middle layer of leadership that is over capacity. So we've actually seen a lot of individual contributors actually be kind of okay from a utilization and from a capacity perspective during this. And so, you know, there's less distractions in the office. They're obviously dealing with home distractions, but it's in a different way. But for middle managers, you now are having anywhere from 1 to, you know, the X number of direct report one-on-one meetings every single day that used to happen organically in the office, while getting your own work done, while readjusting to priorities, while answering any of your company or any of your direct reports that are struggling with this. And so they're really struggling with capacity. And so I think that can show up to direct reports. And so just trying to take 5 really centered minutes is better than 10 or 15 really discombobulated minutes.
Yeah, I resonate with that a lot. I think that's good. The thing you're also touching on that's really true with empathy is that it's more than just being nice. It takes, in a season like this where everyone is facing like a new level of busyness, like it's not the same type of busy, but it is still busy. It takes intentionality. Like empathy takes intentionality to truly understand situations. And so how are you setting aside time to make sure that you are continually understanding the situations of your employees? So like one really practical thing we're doing right now every morning, like with my team, we do a red, yellow, green check-in. How are you showing up today? It's the very first thing we do to start our day every single day right now. And it takes 5 to 7 minutes total, but it's just a way to be intentional before we get into the kind of, here's all the stuff we have to get done today. It's how are you doing? Like, how are you showing up today? Is it a red day? Like I'm showing up red, you know, whatever it may be, just like, and probably if you're a leader, you know, over multiple teams or you kind of serve the entire organization, are you taking time just to be with people, like you're saying, like, and actually being present and however you choose to do that or however you're able to do that?
Yeah, one other idea with that too is I had received a lot of feedback from my team that as an employee engagement company, not only is COVID surrounding our day-to-day lives, but it's also consuming our work lives. And I think that's true for a lot of organizations. And so when this crisis is just consuming everything, it can be more overwhelming than if we were dealing with almost anything else. And so I think if you have those team meetings, like finding a fun question or bringing some element to work that isn't about, you know, the coronavirus or the global pandemic, which the economic downturn, it just provides a little bit of lightness to the org. And so, you know, I've seen a lot of things like the potato, you know, in Microsoft Teams, if you guys saw that going around the internet, but even things like, you know, every morning in stand-up, we would ask ourselves a different question. So we did like Scar Wars. So like, what's your best Scar story? Where are you from? Like, what's your heritage? We actually did that on St. Patrick's Day because we wanted to see if we had any, you know, Irish on our team. Like, wear your favorite T-shirt day, or like show us your favorite coffee cup day. Just something that allows that human connection to happen that has absolutely nothing to do with your to-do list or what's going on in the world.
Right.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. Good job, Adam.
Great job, Nicole. Well, I think we're crushing it, I think. Everyone.
Hey, what do you guys think? But this is a great thing. If you guys have any questions about what we just talked about, empathy, having hard conversations, please put it in the chat. We'll get to that. But want to transition to what Adam was saying earlier about, you know, people are now working with young children and dogs and all of these crazy things, as well as a lot of businesses transitioning to a fully remote culture for the first time ever. So Adam, you put together an awesome doc that we are calling the Work from Home Ground Rules that goes through a lot of different things. But could you maybe just talk through, I'm going to click the slide here, start with the communication ground rules around going remote, and then we'll transition to a couple other things, but maybe just start with those ground rules and then we can get into some tactics.
Yeah. Well, first, for us, when we made this decision that next day, you know, after the Wednesday, just over a month ago, that Thursday, we made the decision to move fully remote. And we've been serving remote distributed teams for the last several years. And we just decided that day, we're like, as an engagement company, like we're all in and we're doing this with excellence. We're going to sell out to being a fully remote culture. So we went from a centralized hub to remote in a day. And so quickly what we created a centralized resource just to lay out what the ground rules were. And our default was over communication. It's how can we set up these new cadences that really institute touch points, like how do we bake these in, because we're not going to have hallway conversations anymore or like that just happen organically. So we need to be really intentional about that. So that's been, we've been sharing that resource as well. So you're welcome to it. So I can, after this or as a leave behind, it is exactly what we're using. It's a living, breathing document. It includes kind of the latest on how we're processing both COVID, the office, and then also some of these ground rules as well. So like tactically what's
that right now.
Okay,
well.
Awesome.
This is just a note for future cells for us to put that in the chat.
Perfect. So then when this, okay, yeah, it's kind of fun. It's like us and then like future us. And I don't know which one we're going to enjoy more.
I don't either. Yeah.
We'll find out. We'll know. We'll debrief after. So we're just practically, just to get kind of tactical on what this looks like for us, we're doing a weekly all team meeting. That is on Monday, first thing on Monday, 45 minutes. And it includes, I've been leading a guided gratitude meditation. It's a couple minutes doing a poem. And then Santiago, our CEO, and my business partner does business updates. I do people culture updates. And then each of the departments do rapid fire updates as well. I think it's going to be interesting coming out of this, because something like that is so valuable to the whole company, and you're able to keep everyone in the loop on all the moving parts of your business. I'm really curious with some of these over communication things, what things we all realized we were dramatically under communicating before. So that's one. We are asking every single team to do video stand-ups every day as well. So usually, so every single day. And the key here is aligning on priorities, especially like the top 2 priorities, like take your big horizon and make it really small, and challenge and equip your people managers to give clarity to the employees. Like, do I understand your situation? Okay, and then are we both aligned on what we're expecting out of you? And do we have clarity on what might block you from achieving those? And then trying to every single day at the company level, every single day, making sure there's a check-in call with the manager. Even if it's 5 minutes, we just want to make sure that manager and employee are having a brief touch point every single day. That's been our basic foundation that we followed. And then I guess in addition to this, with all the people managers, my team is meeting with them once a week too, just to hear what's working, what's not. And what we're really doing is creating a shared space for them to, but I mean, Nicole referenced this earlier. It's a lot of these direct people managers are the ones who are in the toughest spot right now, because they are trying to manage all of these people. They're trying to process the situation themselves. They feel helpless about maybe some of the larger business impact things. And so how are we caring for those people and giving them a place to both learn from each other, process, gain tips, like how can they lead well, that sort of thing. So that's all kind of on the general communication ground rules. I can talk through a little bit of like also, one of the things we've laid the foundation for is like how we use technology in this too, because we have like new streams of work that are happening. Is it okay if I talk through that a little bit too, Nicole?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to add one thing on, especially on like the manager to direct report connection. And obviously this works well if you have a Slack or are working virtually. You know, if you're on a manufacturing floor or more of a less remote friendly environment, I think you can adjust these as needed. You know, we've had some customers say that they're having everyone stand like 6 feet apart and doing team meetings, and, you know, having managers kind of video chat in on a FaceTime or something to talk to everyone. So I think you can really adjust this for your setting. But one of the things I was doing too is asking the team to do a quick write-up. And so every morning it is, what was your last 24 hours? What's your next 24 hours? And do you have any blockers to achieving that? And what was nice about it is that when we were talking or doing those video calls, we could focus a little bit more on the human side because we had already surfaced the to-dos. And it was nice to be able to go back and reference those so that if someone, if you have to manage up and report on what's going on, you kind of can go back and look with a day by day, what was accomplished, what wasn't. And I think there's something about having to write down your priorities versus just verbalizing them. It kind of makes it a little more concrete. So that was something that was working well that I think you could kind of fold into the communication cadence on the screen.
That's awesome. That was good. Good tip there. If we had graphics, like that would have been like a graphic just swirled around. That was, yeah. I forgot to add, just because this is a real time, things change fast. We did add one other thing to our communication cadence as well, which is Santiago, who I mentioned earlier, our CEO, has been doing a Friday video every week that is not about business updates. It's just a personal reflection on the week. It's like 5 to 7 minutes long. And it shows just the more authentic side of what the experience is like for him. And one of the things as a leader, I think, just to ask yourself, and why I think it's powerful, is how are you giving your team permission to process authentically this situation? And one of the ways you do that as a leader is by displaying it in yourself. And so that's been a really neat thing that we've been doing. He's done 3 now, I guess, so for the past 3 weeks.
I'll also give that a little finger burst for good tip, CEO video. And again, I think you can, that has worked for us, especially with as much communication we have during the week. But I've also heard CEOs that maybe are a little more removed from the organization that are just doing 90-second videos every morning.
Nice.
And so for us, we're doing more of a 5-minute video at the end of the week to recap and then kicking our week off with the entire executive team. And some are having leadership, do it a little bit more bite-size each day. I think what's important is what Adam said of allowing your employees to connect face-to-face with the senior level executive team, or even more specifically your president or CEO, and allowing to lead by example. So lead like a human requires you actually being a human and showing that side of yourself. And so however, again, that works for your world, that is a great addition that you should definitely be writing down right now.
Yeah. I wanted to talk just a little bit about technology ground rules as well, because when you go, especially if you're someone who just went remote and maybe, you're dealing with this real time and you haven't re-updated what your flows of work are, and to not take for granted that employees maybe don't know what the expectations are. And what I mean by that is thinking through all of your different communication channels and what they each mean inside of your organization. So that was an awesome transition with the slide too. Nicely done. We're collaborating as if we're in the same room.
Are we lines that we can do a high five?
I think so. Who knows? We're gonna laugh at our attempt regardless. So, what this does is it helps employees know how to be with technology. And so we just laid this is ours, and it is in that document as well. But so, for example, email, not urgent, but high priority, usually a lot of times more strategic work for us. So we'll respond within 24 hours. The key though is, for example, if I send an email to my direct report at 10 p.m. because work is different. I maybe can't get to work because I've got kids and my wife owns a business and we're all trying to get stuff done. So I'm working really late. We should have clarity on when there's urgency to respond, right? And so this is saying I can email you, and that's a place you shouldn't feel any pressure to respond. With Slack, it's not as urgent, it's low priority. Get to it when you can. With text, it is urgent and high priority. Please respond as soon as possible. And then with the call, it is so text mid to high priority, and then call urgent high priority. Please call back. So if I call at 10 p.m., hey, let's pick up the phone. We have to do. There's something that needs to be done. But this also matters though, because I think when our default is under communication as a leader, you often don't realize how much you're impacting your employees' lives. Maybe they have notifications on their email. They get an email at 10:30, and their narrative is like, I can never take a break. There's no downtime. There's never a way for me to escape this. But if you give them permission and create the arc of how communication works, what you'll actually find is your people will be more productive because they get more space. Like they have more default times to recharge, and they have better understanding of what these flows and streams of work are.
I think an important thing as well to talk to your people managers about setting those expectations with their employees is encourage employees to have the space that is dedicated for work. And then when you're not working, that you don't go back to that space. And so if you're, sitting on the couch working, and then the day is over and you continue to sit on the couch and watch Netflix, that can be confusing mentally of, my computer's right there. I can get this email that's just popped into my head. I know many people that still have their work bag, and they take their computer out every morning and they go to wherever they need to go and they work. And then when they're done, they go and put it back in their bag, or they have a specific room and they shut the door. And I think setting that, it goes back to routine. Obviously that's part of their daily routine, but I really think when home has to be both work and home and rest and work, it's hard to really, it's very easy to just say, oh, well, I know that, we've talked about email being non-urgent, so Adam sent me that, but, I have nothing else to do, so I'll just, I'll just email now so I don't forget. And that is where we're going to see perpetuated burnout as this continues.
There's something to just naming what done is, like when is enough, like for this day. It is very similar to me of when, my very first startup, it was go all the time. And in the very beginning where you haven't even seen if it's going to work yet. And having to create some ground rules around when is a day's work, and I love that idea of the backpack. I've actually been doing that. One of our employees, Chip Maxwell, he's phenomenal to me. He's one of the gurus truly of how to really win this mental, this mental relationship with work. And one of the things he does that, because he's worked from home, he's been a remote employee before this, is he takes a walk at the end of the day, as if it's like his commute. And it kind of is this symbolic gesture of my work is done. And then I personally highly recommend buying a camper. So I'm just kidding. It has been really nice, but I understand that it's not, it's total happenstance. I also bought a camper 5 weeks ago, but I have really tried to make this really a symbolic space too, even though my kids have been out here all day, playing around across this booth from me and up in this bunk bed over here. But when I leave, I have, really tried to let that be kind of the close of my day, and then not entering back into this space unless it's for work. And it's created a weird relationship with the camper. Feels a little bit, I need an Amplify logo or something, but yeah. the spirit behind that, I think, is true for everyone.
I will say there are two things that I think Adam can be a spokesperson for during this time. And so if anyone sells or makes campers, Adam can be your spokesperson. And the other is puppies, because what was it, a week before we went into remote work, you got one of the cutest puppies ever that has also been a great source of water cooler connection for the employees to see your puppy. So is this a reminder for future selves to post a picture of the puppy? I actually got Poppy, my new puppy, the same day that we started all working from home. That Friday, the official first day, was the same day I got her. So it has been a delightful distraction for me, and hopefully for other people as well. And so for all of you watching, we're going to post some Poppy pictures, because who doesn't love looking at puppies? She is adorable. This is also a great reminder. If you have questions or thoughts that you would like to put in chat, please do. You can respond to Adam's puppy. She's amazing. But yes, so I think that those are some really good things, and actually is a great transition to the third part of this that is going to be on this doc as well, but is kind of that human element of remote work. And so we call it live water coolers, but I think this kind of breaks into a couple different things. And so obviously we all know, the proverbial office water cooler where things just happen, connection is made. And so trying to create that, I think is probably more important now than ever. And so Adam, can you just kind of talk through the strategy behind this and kind of what you've done to bring that to life here at Amplify?
Yeah, I think this has been a big part of our strategy to try to do remote with excellence, right? What we realized was a successful meeting cadence, like the Monday all team and the stand-ups on video and the one-on-ones with you, like that is good. Those are good bones, but they don't really create a culture, and they don't create those kind of more the fun part. And I'm curious if anyone else has experienced a little bit of Zoom burnout when you go meeting to meeting to meeting, seriously, only in Zoom, and they're all, very structured, regimented meetings. I think the spirit behind Watercooler is how can you try to more organically foster relationships. So through video, but that have a little bit of levity or lightness to them. Or just that are different than the standard streams of work. So I'll kind of talk you through what we've been doing. I actually think this is probably, of all the things we've done, this is probably what I'm the most proud of, just from how it's actually gone and how it's helped facilitate the culture. So one is we just have an actual water cooler live stream set up at all times. So it's just a running Zoom, and it's always on. And then what we found was it was a little awkward because people kept missing each other. Like you'd be on there by yourself and no one else was on. So what we started doing was people would offer to host a certain amount, like time. So I'll be on at 11 to show my puppy, whatever, like things like that. Or, we'll pick a certain topic and like you guys want to talk video games, we'll be on at this time. And there's just one dedicated person who was committed to being there, and then no pressure for other people to show up. But it just creates different interactions during the day. Before I go on to the next topics, you hosted one, didn't you, Nicole? Do you want to talk about what you did for yours?
I did.
Oh, I just realized what you hosted yours on. I did not mean to. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. You guys are going to get to know me a little better. So I travel quite a bit for work and have developed an anxiety around bed bugs. So when you travel at hotels and like the fear of getting bed bugs. So I have a pretty extensive routine of checking hotel rooms for bed bugs and like trying to contract them. So I walk through that routine for everyone because it's become a little infamous in the office. And you know what? If anyone wants to know it, I'm happy to talk you guys through it. We can have an offline conversation. But I will say a little more normal one is Chip Maxwell, who Adam mentioned earlier, who has been a remote employee. He did one on, remote tips. And so a couple of us joined and we just shared like what's been working, what are we struggling with, and he had some really good feedback. And one of the things kind of bridging those conversations that he did share is he struggled at first feeling like it was okay to know what done was. And he was like, I always felt like I had to put in even more time and always have my little green light on. And the first time I took a 5-hour day or a 4-hour day, it felt like I was cheating. But then I realized that when I started doing that and living a more balanced life, he had his best quarters in company history and personal history when he started living more balanced. So we'll bridge those conversations.
Yeah, sorry, but I like that again. But what I love about that is like it's so human, like the bed, because it feels more. That's really what we're going for. We're trying to be personal. We're real people, and we don't want the digital divide between us to not feel like we're all still like joking and having fun and doing things like that together. So thank you for sharing that. So the other one we did, which I would love for everyone to steal this and borrow it, because it is probably the coolest thing we do. We've done this live for several years, and we did it this time digitally, is our show and tell. And it's kind of a variety show of sorts. It's really just people sharing what they're passionate about, or so it could be a trip, it could be a specific interest, it can be a story in your life, it could be a talent. We give people 5 minutes, and 5 minutes, and so it moves pretty quickly. We started ours at the end of the day as well, so people, it's more of a casual environment. This is just a way to get to know your peers as well, in like a really different way, because they're talking about something that you wouldn't normally talk about. What was actually neat about doing the show and tell this year compared to years past was the live chat that was happening at the same time. So people were commenting and giving feedback as well. So there's that. We have been trying to take really seriously, like acknowledging the actual situation that's happening in our culture, and trying to make sure we're equipping our people with the best information possible. So we've done these well-being discussions. The very first week, the week 2, when we were like officially like, hey, we're going to be remote for a while. We ran a well-being discussion. They were 30 minutes with an outside expert. So we brought in Pete the planner, who's a financial expert. We brought in media literacy people on how to consume the media, a counselor, a nurse. So and we did a session on diversity and inclusion for remote workforces. And now we've moved that cadence to once a week. So a 30-minute once a week. But it's also just a gathering place where we're being intentional about professional development and very relevant professional development to this season. And I feel like that's a pretty good understanding of most of the things that we've done, because I think, this is the other ones really kind of get at like what the kind of happy hour breakout sessions, that sort of thing. If you haven't used, just for this like building interactions, the other thing, and now I'm doing a lot more of that actually this week, is like using breakout sessions as well. So we did a session on our core values too, where we launched our core values actually the week prior to all of this happening. So it was a great, really critical timing, but we hadn't had a chance to actually have people talk and discuss it. So big group session, whole companies on, and then split into groups of 3 or 4 through Zoom breakout rooms. It is a really effective way to get to go deeper, and it randomizes, so you get to talk to people you normally wouldn't talk to as well.
It is a pretty fun feature if you haven't used it. So kind of going along that, can you just maybe go a little bit more specific on how to foster employee engagement while remote? Like, is there anything outside of this that maybe ties more towards like the core of employee engagement?
Well, I mean, true employee engagement, right? If you're getting to the root of it, is how do we motivate and inspire our people to bring their very best self to work every day? And I would say right now it's shorten the horizon of your decision making. So set short goals, be extra clear, and try to find something to rally your team behind. And each team might be a little bit different. But so like for us, right away, the very first week we decided we're an engagement measurement company. Like this, we were built for moments like this, for serving companies through seasons like this. But lots of people are really preoccupied, obviously, with a global pandemic. So we took our entire product and engineering team and set a goal to release a COVID-specific well-being assessment, and we made it free. We built the thing in 2 weeks. And what it did, I think, was I think I'll always look back on those 2 weeks as something that will teach me about management in general, is when you give a group of people something to rally behind in a difficult season, it is such a powerful motivator and distraction, honestly. And they can do exceptional things. And so we're all really proud of that. I mean, we have 800 or 600 customers or companies who've already signed up to use this assessment. 15,000 employees have been served by it. Like, it's been really neat how quickly it took off, but it's also just something to galvanize the team to say, hey, we are fighting, like we are doing something. We're not just surviving right now. We're trying to do things to actually like win right now. And I think the thing in the last couple of weeks I've been thinking about is how do we recreate that all throughout our organization and give people things to be inspired about in this season, in this short-term season right now.
That was perfect. Yeah, and this is a little spoiler alert, but we'll talk about it. But Adam is actually writing a book that will be launched here in about 2 months. And so we can give you some follow-up information on how to get access to it, but it's called Leading Like a Human. And it's been really interesting to watch that book come together. And then this crisis hit, because so much of the fundamentals have really transferred and I think are actually more important, which is part of where you got the title for today. But an entire chapter is dedicated towards purpose and how to activate your purpose throughout an organization. And I think right now, when there can be sense of hopelessness, some of the things we've actually found from that well-being survey is that people are really concerned about how this is going to impact their personal life moving forward and the business moving forward. And they tend to have more negative feelings towards that. And so I think the more that you can give them something to work towards, it's how you're going to get alignment, that discretionary effort in this time when it can be so easy to not want to give it, is aligning around purpose. And I think, you know, if I could create a term called micro purpose right now, it would be kind of what Adam says, that shorter vision for how to get through the season. I just think is so critical to think about. And then one other thing that I've seen a lot is, you know, as people are making changes, and I talk a little bit about this later, but you see a lot of businesses that are pivoting, whether it's new revenue streams or it's new services, to just be helpful during this and kind of just be a resource in the market. You see people taking new roles, or some roles might be under capacity. And so what can you do with those folks to realign them and give them the space to innovate and maybe take on things that they didn't think they could do, that now they're uniquely positioned to do, and even allow them to kind of innovate for future revenue streams or future differentiations for yourself after this is over. And I think that is really where engagement is so critical right now. Most people would probably say, oh, we need to focus on, you know, the income statement, which you 100% have to focus on that and cash flow. But I think it's the people that are going to serve their employees during this time and keep an engaged workforce are the ones that are going to survive through this and actually thrive when we get out of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think I would just add that, like, find something realistic to celebrate. People need to win and to feel like what they're doing matters. And so, like Nicole said, the purpose is critical, and many people's purposes are being found out right now. It is before this crisis began, it was one of the #1 motivators that employees value. Do I work for a company that has a purpose that matters? And it doesn't matter what you do, you can make your purpose something like your business exists in the world for a specific reason, and that reason needs to be believed by your employees. And right now, that's more critical than ever. And now, on the journey to make that happen, find realistic ways of what winning looks like in this new environment, make them very short term, and then just celebrate them. Like, let's enjoy, like, let's do our very best to acknowledge that there are small wins that are happening right now. It can't feel like losses every single day over and over and over. It has to be ways to make it clear, like, what winning feels like and looks like in this environment too.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And so with that, I want to transition to a pretty heavy topic that I think is on the mind for a lot of people who have either already had to make tough choices in their workforce or are getting ready to make tough choices in their workforce. But as they think through potential layoffs or furloughs, and both how to approach that and those conversations, but then also managing the transition afterwards, how do you support the team through that while leading like a human?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key here is some of the stuff I said earlier, which is be authentic, be transparent with how you made the decisions. One of the, like, very early kind of in this process, Santiago and I sat down and we met with our executive, one of our coach, and he said, you know, there's really two streams that are happening here, right? There's the what decisions you actually have to make, because you have to make decisions, you know, you're going to have to be faced with the tactical, tough decisions. But then there's the who, and that is the who are you going to be as you make these tough decisions. And that who part, when that meeting happened, we wrote it down. And that day we wrote it down. Since then, and Nicole's, gosh, probably heard this 10 times now and live, we start every single meeting naming the who we're going to be as we make these decisions. And so for us, and I'll share them with you in case it's helpful, but because I think it lays the foundation for that care through tough decisions. The first is ours is that we'll be good financial stewards of our business to bring our purpose to life in the long term. The second is we will handle everyone with authenticity and care. And the third is that we will courageously share the reality of our business. And similar to the blog at the very start of this webinar, Like we said those for ourselves because there's going to be times, and there have been times already, where courageously sharing the reality of the business is hard. And it does actually take courage. But by being transparent about our decision-making process, by helping people understand why we're making the decisions we're making, you know, our hope is that people feel that they respect the reality of the situation, and they feel a part of this. They feel more aligned to the purpose than ever. They want to fight for the purpose, you know, all those things. Anything you would add? Or just give me advice. I'm fine with that too.
No, I think that's really good. I think we had a really great guest speaker on a call or on a webinar last week. And just one of the things that's really stuck with me is specifically through like the crisis part. So first of all, if you're looking for ways to extend cash flows, there's obviously a lot of new things coming from the government, SBA loans. Adam, I'm sure you probably know more about that than I do. But there are a lot of resources that you can look at to try and, you know, keep as many employees as you possibly can for as long as you can. If you get to the point, however, that you have to make a tough decision to protect the business and you have to part with folks, there were a couple of recommendations he made that I thought were really powerful. One is that you need to cut deep enough so you only have to do it once. If you get into a pattern of laying someone off and then having to communicate that to your team, and it's happening every couple of weeks, you are fostering a culture of fear, of insecurity, of a lack of job security that is going to make the people that you have left just paralyzed and not be able to bring their best self to work and do the best work for you. And so if you can make a decision to cut deep enough, one, so you can only do it once, communicate that, and then work with your team in the way Adam said to support them through it, you're going to rebound faster with the team you still have. And then two, cut deep enough so that you also are allowing yourself some funds to reinvest in the team as you move through this. So his, you know, just obviously it's whatever you need, but if you need to cut 10% of expenses, cut 15. And give yourself that 5% to reinvest back into the right decisions when you need it. And I just thought that that was a really strategic way to look at a really hard decision that also gives you some really clear talking points to then explain back to your organization and give them some trust that you're not going to have to do this again, that they can have faith in the business, that you are being good stewards of your cash. And so I just thought that was a really tactical way to look at this.
Super good. That's very good.
We only have a couple minutes left, so just a reminder, please be using the chat. You guys might have some questions about that topic in particular as it relates to your company, so please put that in the chat. But want to end on maybe just a little bit of an upbeat note. Not that any of this is upbeat, just maybe something a little bit more light. So want to just maybe lean into.
Are you closing on bed bugs or?
No, not closing on bed bugs.
Not close. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Let's not close on bed bugs. So I guess maybe with that, Adam, I can just, if you have any maybe last notes you want to share. We did have a couple other topics we could talk through, but is there just maybe anything else you would share?
Yeah, I mean, I would just think, I think just go back to what I started with. I think it's this is a great time to be authentic to yourself. And one question I got asked by a leader I really respect is, and so if you're a leader watching this, it's what do you specifically have permission to do in your organization that no one else does and that could serve your people at this time? And to really like lean into that. Right? That's sort of for me why I started. It's what do you uniquely, what do you uniquely have permission to do inside the organization to serve your people at this time? And to know that there's no playbook. So maybe there's something about you and some skill you have or some trust you've built, and lean into that uniqueness, because it likely will be something that can to really serve your team. And then my last thing I just want to say too is that there's a lot of changes that are happening in businesses. There's change management. So all the stuff that's actually happening, like do we have role clarity and goals and systems and processes? to not forget the transitional change that's also happening in people, the softer side, the grieving of a business or of a different way of work or of past employees, to not forget to take care of people on that transitional change as well, and to take care of yourself. It will catch up to you, whether it catches up to you or to your team. And so it is better to be ahead of it and to tend to your people during this time on that side as well.
I think that's awesome. Again, just a couple of things before we wrap up here. One, future Nicole will be putting a link to a Zoom in the chat right now. Immediately following, you can talk with future Adam and future Nicole about anything here, and just have a chance to kind of connect with us via Zoom. So we'd love to see you after this. We do have our booth available. Again, please go check that out. But Adam, can you maybe just share a little bit more, I'll put this link in as well, but about the well-being assessment and kind of how that relates to Amplify, and just maybe if people are kind of interested in that, just maybe explaining that a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I'll share just briefly like two resources that might be helpful to you all. So one, as I mentioned earlier, we built a COVID-specific well-being assessment. We worked with PhDs to make sure they're statistically valid. You can have statistically valid data, but we did it really quickly, and it's free. Managers can use it, so you can just spin it up, send it out, and you'll have clarity on how your team is doing through this specific situation. So that's one side. The other is we're oftentimes right now companies are dealing with, they maybe froze hiring, they've lost staff, and they need to but the demand and expectation on their people is still really high. So our core offering as well is an engagement measurement solution. It understands the state of engagement. How are your people doing? It figures out where there's pockets of disengagement, and we have strategists to help analyze that data and coach you on what to do to try to improve the situation. So if you're trying to do more with less resources right now, that's also a great option as well. So both are available. We'd love to talk about it and serve you in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to contact@amplify.com. That's contact@amplify.com. And a member of our team can kind of help get you to that well-being assessment, answer any of your questions, or talk to you about, launching a core survey. But really, as Adam said, we're just trying to be here as a resource. We're doing weekly webinars ourselves at Amplify. Adam is a featured speaker on many of those. So please feel free to come to the website and check that out. But hope to see you all in the virtual Meet the Author after this. And any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to either of us. But thanks so much for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.